afternoon and welcome to the CCSQ Town Hall. For those who are new, these calls are designed to provide you with updates, announcements, and training demos related to the CDR, SaaS via Databricks, and more. So we're going to cover some quick administrative announcements before we get started. For Town Hall guidelines, just please remember to stay muted during the call so we can minimize interruptions. Use the Zoom chat to ask any questions related to our presentations that can be answered during our Q&A. And then all of our meeting materials will be made available in our Confluence space after the event. So to cover our agenda, first we're going to be starting with our monthly satisfaction survey review, and then we're going to discuss an upcoming Databricks training. We're going to review an Embari decommission update, the BYOA migration, recent Databricks releases, and then wrap up with a Q&A session.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammed Bizri. I'm a product owner on the data and analytics team. And today I'm going to go over the monthly satisfaction survey review and poll. And so this first slide, you'll see the results from the performance and uptime. And so 62% of respondents were satisfied with the performance and uptime of the environment, which was an increase from June, which was 58% last time. 17% were dissatisfied, which is also an increase from June, which was 12%. 18% answered that they were neutral in June, in July, that decreased to 11%. And not applicable stayed about the same, 12% of respondents. The top categories here from the performance and uptime results were SaaS via stabilization, downtime impacting work, syncing issues between SaaS via and QuickSight, lack of data documentation, and work requiring manual effort / permissions issues. We'll address these in just a second here. Next slide, please. This question dealt with general overall satisfaction with the DNA environment. So for the month of July, you can see that 51% of respondents were satisfied with the environment, which was an increase from 49% in June. 30% were dissatisfied with the environment, which was also an increase from 28% in June. Neutral stayed about the same at 15%. And not applicable responses were 5% in July, which was a decrease from the 8% in June. I just wanted to address something real quick. Overall, there were many system stability issues in the month of June and July. And I just wanted to note for everyone that we are continuing to work on several improvements. These include migrating off of the storage gateways to Lustre, which allows for a more performant and stable file system. So this is largely complete. We're actually wrapping it up this quarter. We're also migrating off of Embari to Databricks, which will also allow for a better performant and stable compute cluster. This is underway, and we will be soliciting feedback from you later in this presentation on that topic. Last but not least, we're also implementing redundancy and immutable architecture to remove single points of failure in our system, and that's a constant effort and is underway currently. This question revolved around help desk satisfaction, and so for the month of July, help desk support satisfaction decreased from 61% in June to 57% in July. 12% were dissatisfied in July, which was an increase from 5% in the month of June. Neutral rose to 20% in July from 8% in June, and not applicable also rose to 23% from 14% in July. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to address some of the top categories users responded with, which were ticket support, communication, timeliness, focus on issue resolution, and ticket confirmation. And I just wanted to note, many of the tickets that we had in the month of July were related to Databricks. And like many new product launches, there are unknowns and tickets may take a little longer to resolve initially. We truly appreciate your patience as we work through this. Last question kind of centered on the resources available for the data and analytics environment. So for the month of July, 54% were satisfied, which was a decrease from 72% last month. 22% overall were dissatisfied, which increased from 3%. Neutral were 14%, which was a decrease from 19%, and not applicable increased to 10% from 6% in June. We recognize that there is a need for additional training and materials for Databricks. I know that we've been ramping things up this quarter. And so we're working on several trainings, which will be discussed later in this presentation. I just wanted to highlight some of the top categories users responded with around documentation and resources. So Obviously, the first one is data documentation and data dictionaries, integration between SASVI and Databricks, ease of navigation / user experience, syntax and query efficiency, again, advanced data dictionaries, and some more documentation around table joins. We truly thank you for the feedback, and we're going to continue to build out additional training to support the user community needs. Please continue to give us feedback on what training materials you'd like to see offered. So in a moment, we're going to kick off the monthly satisfaction survey for August. In just a second here, a Zoom poll will pop up on the screen. You'll have about 5 or 6 minutes to answer. You'll need to scroll down to see all the questions. Once you've answered all the questions, please be sure to hit submit. As a reminder, we use this data to improve our tools, our training, and our offerings for the CDR platform, and we really value your feedback. So just a few reminders before we get started. Only answer the poll if you're a user of the CDR, and please be as specific as possible in open-ended responses.
Thank you so much for your answers and participation.
Next section, we'll be talking about the Databricks training that we're working on in this quarter. Thank you. We have 2 new trainings out right now, which are the Databricks overview video. There was a lot of content when we pushed this out that was presented either in the data camps or in the pilot sessions. And so what we did is we consolidated them all and have them all in one place or in one video for you. Then we also did the Databricks language overview. What we're doing in this quarter is we're working on, based off of your feedback that we're hearing, is that we need to be able to have, how do I use this tool? What's the data? Like, I need an overview of getting in there and working with it. And so that's what we're essentially creating. Worked with Ian as well as the Databricks support team. We identified a list of it from your surveys and working with them. So what else we have coming that will be coming out all throughout this quarter will be the SaaS to Databricks intro into R, and then a bunch of like best practices of how to use with specific cases on using Databricks. All of this content and training will be found in the training hub.
And then I'll be sharing the link to the training hub in our chat as well.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Julia. I'm the product owner for the team responsible for Databricks and some of the parts to the decommissioning that's coming up. So I'm going to talk about a few things as we move along here. I'll start with the Embari decommission. All right. So what's needed to fully turn off Embari? All right. So on our side, right, we're doing the CASLib migration. It's going to be finishing up this weekend with our monthly maintenance. All right. We did the past 2 maintenance. We migrated pretty much all of them. There's just a few remaining that we identified that we're still going to migrate over this weekend. So that'll be done September 1st, maintenance weekend. We've seen a large uptick with SaaS users trying out the new macro, which is great as we continue to get people onboarded to the SQL cluster. Just note that we will be resizing the cluster here soon because to give you guys more resources, better power. So we've noticed that while Databricks does auto scale, we can increase that to auto scale even more. So we will be doing that here shortly. So that's the second part. Third part is any BYOA tool. So I will be going over this in the next few slides here to really give a definition of BYOA, but similar to the SaaS users, as in we're going to migrate all of those connections over to the new notebook SQL cluster and are in the process right now of doing that. So we've reached out to the few orgs that do have any of those tools or they are using any of them to make sure that we can successfully reach the dates for decommissioning. So once those 3 pieces are done, we can fully turn off Embari, right? And then the next piece after that would be the migration to Glue. So we are prepping for that right now, doing our source regression and any sort of test and validations that we need to do in our low environments currently before we start that migration. All right, so where are we now? So we released the SQL cluster, the notebook cluster about a month ago. Okay, so like I said, we've seen a large uptick with users utilizing that, which is awesome. We definitely want you all to be moving over to the SQL cluster, trying out your new macros and seeing some success with that. Obviously, we'll continue to improve that notebook cluster, as I talked about before, with both configurations, right? Give you more power and resources, as well as trainings, as Brian mentioned before. Cast libs, as I mentioned, this is going to be done this weekend. So I'll be able to check those two off the list. BYOA migration will be done throughout the next month before September 29th is the plan. That maintenance weekend, it's our goal to shut off Embari. So we, like I said, we're working pretty steadily with those organizations that have a tool that would be classified as BYOA and helping move those connections over. And then lastly, as I talked about in progress, is the Hive to Glue migration prep. So it's kind of a full multiple team effort on our side, as far as making sure all of our tests are in place, make sure everybody has the same access to data, and all of the validations that would go along with that. So that's currently in progress. It will be for the next month or two. So just making sure we've crossed our T's and dotted our I's. Next slide, please. All right, so why are we migrating? All right, so obviously in the past 2 months, you have all bared the weight of like the SaaS going down or any unplanned downtime that we've seen, and all the issues that we've run across in the past few months and beyond. More so in the past few months, there's been a larger uptick. But so the reason we really want to get off Embari as quickly as possible is to minimize that. Obviously, Databricks is a much more powerful and stable environment. And in parallel, right, we're also building out some stability with our SaaS environments and more automated fashion, I would say. So what that's going to mean for everyone else is there's going to be less unplanned maintenance, less security, issues, and everything right now is very, very manual. So as we in parallel build out this more automated SaaS, and as we move over to Databricks, I think, well, I know you're going to be able to see much better results, less downtime for you all. So it's definitely some things to look forward to as we move forward here. Next slide, please. All right, so we do have a survey, another one. I know, a bunch of surveys today, but it's regarding the decommission. So they're going to put it, okay, they just put it in the chat, SurveyMonkey chat. If you could take some time and fill that out by end of day Friday, that would be super helpful. I just really want to make sure that everyone's getting the resources, or at least knows where the resources are. Okay, so I put, as I talked about in the past, town halls and QNet chats or any of these other community chats, a lot of the information we put out there is on the training hub, including anything dealing with the Embari decommission, how to switch your connection from SaaS using the new macro to Databricks, as well as obviously all the notebook trainings available that we have published in the past few months since that release. So please take a look at the outward facing training hub site for anything regarding that, and please take the survey as well. We would definitely appreciate it. All right, so now I'm going to talk about BYOA. I did not realize that this wasn't widely known, pretty much what BYOA is. Okay, so I'm going to delve into some of the details here. So BYOA connection is short for Bring Your Own Analytics. Basically, what that means is, within the DNA environment, right, we provide the user community with tools for which you request through HARP, right? So Databricks has Zeppelin formerly. But if you have a tool in your own environment if you have like a database or anything you want to perform analysis on, and you want to use like a tool that we have, or if you want to connect a tool like Redshift, QuickSight, EMR to our environment to do analysis on, that is pretty much what BYOA is. Okay, so bring your own analytics, i.e. bring your own tool to do analysis on the data that we own, or we can provide you with, we're doing a use case right now where we're providing Databricks for some of the data that is owned outside of what we own. So it's owned by another organization. But in short, it's you have a tool that is currently owned by your organization, whatever it might be, Redshift, QuickSight, EMR, Snowflake, and you connect that to our environment to do your analysis. But I realized that was not widely known when we were doing some of those communications. So I just wanted to get that, set the record straight there on exactly what it is and some of the use cases behind it. So next slide, please.
So this is Ken. I want to add a disclaimer to that. So to clarify what that means is within a CMS FSMA boundary, right? That is not the exported data from the CDR, but connection of other services, other ADO services that are within an ATO and CMS FSMA boundary.
Thanks, Ken. All right. So how does this relate to what I just spoke about in the prior slides? Okay. So currently I'll answer those questions once I finish here. So currently all connections are made to Embari. Okay. We need to move those connections from Embari to Databricks. All right. So if we have an external connection, that's why we have to work with some of our organizations that are using those tools to move that connection from pointing to Embari to now pointing to Databricks. So much like the SaaS version where you had a macro, now you're using a new one to point to Databricks. It's similar in that higher fashion, but it's more connection related. So currently we received feedback from pretty much everyone. I think I've reached out to all the groups that we had understood from our accounts, and we're going to be putting out more data, more, I guess, higher level data on what exactly BOIOA is, just to get some more knowledge out to the user community if they wanted to use that type of connection or had a use case for that. So I just wanted to sort of set the record straight, and thank you, Ken, for helping me out there. All right, so as I talked about before, we do have some documentation regarding BYOA connections to Databricks on how to switch that connection, they're network related or within the actual tool. And then they're posting in the chat right now. There's also documentation on switching connecting to using the new macro to connect to Databricks from SaaS. So these slides will be sent out after we're done here, and you'll be able to go to all these different sites to see where exactly they lie. And obviously, we're definitely here to support you and meet with you to help with these connections or any questions you have. So please continue to use the SOS channel for those type of questions, or if you have a use case for BOIOA, please input or have your program manager put in a DAR request as you would for any new front-facing site. And I think that's it for BYOA. All right, so the last thing I wanted to touch on was just going over exactly what was released in the past few months, and kind of give a story of where we came from and where we're going. So I already touched on the Embari decommissioning and BYOA. So I just want to give another glance at what was just released. Okay, so the notebook version of Databricks. So this is where you're within the Databricks UI to create notebooks to do analysis. You have 4 options for different languages on 2 different clusters. Okay, so if you want to use R, we have an R only cluster that you would have to connect with to use that language. And then for the other ones, there's your normal compute cluster for Python SQL. Okay, we have Workbench and CDR data available. And this is just a much, there's a lot of good, powerful tools to use with these notebooks, I would say, versus, I know a lot of people are used to SAS, but, as we continue to release more trainings on Python and the languages available, and as Brian talked about, we just did an intro to Databricks where they pretty much just give you a very elementary level view of what is a notebook, what is all these menus in the UI. It's a really good place to start. They did a great job on that, so please check that out if you are very, very new to Databricks, or if you just wanted a refresher. Beyond that, you can pretty much do everything within a notebook. Share your results to other people within your organization. You can visualize results as you'd want with different types of graphs or things along those lines. So if you haven't checked out the notebooks yet, I would highly recommend just taking an hour of your time, and if you haven't requested Databricks yet, please go do that and check out what the UI has to offer, and see some of the great benefits of Databricks. Okay, so the second portion that we released is called the Notebook SQL cluster release. So as I talked about, the notebook is Databricks, more so their UI, their built-in functionality, things like that, right? The SQL cluster is for my SaaS users, right? For you to use a different macro, connect to Databricks, and Databricks would be more so the engine that you'd be for that analysis. So the differences between the two releases pretty much are as follows. Every organization has two clusters for the notebook release. So the first release, right? You have an R-only cluster and you have a compute cluster. So every organization has two clusters there. For the SQL cluster release, we released one cluster for the entire community. All right. So as I talked about before, we will be resizing that a little bit to give you a little more power, make it a little larger. And so just be on the lookout for that. But it is one versus multiple per org. So it's one for the community. We released that about a month ago. We have seen, like I talked about before, a large uptick with users on there. So that's great to see, people getting used to using SaaS and Databricks. As we have talked about in the past few town halls, okay, we know there's some known differences between SaaS and Databricks in both, well, like coding related, right, language related, in doing some of your analysis, but also some issues that we're dealing with as well. So that is posted on the where the training hub is as well, and some of the knowledge base articles, more so I should say. That information is located there. So we are working through as quickly as possible with more so Databricks support and SaaS support on how to, remove those issues, as well as provide better training for what the differences are of, with connecting to the new macro. All right, obviously support. So as Mohammed talked about before, we definitely got a few different help desk tickets come in for our team regarding Databricks, and we're definitely working as fast as we can through any of those, either whether it be permissions related or larger issues with the system that we are aware of. As I said, we're working as quickly as we can with SaaS and Databricks support. Those changes or any updates will always be sent to either presented in these meetings or through an email. But if you do run across any issues, please go through the service center so we can get a ticket tracked on our side and just make sure that everything is being documented as well. Next slide. And then Brian talked about this, but so obviously the training page, this is where, if you're, a lot of people are new to Databricks, some people have been using it for a couple of months, but I would highly recommend just going through these intro videos and just keeping track of some of the new trainings that we're coming out with as we move forward here. So Brian talked about the intro one, and there's going to be some R ones coming out as well. I know that was a big, we did a survey and there was a lot of questions about R. So that's definitely high on our priority list to get those trainings out to you all. I'm looking forward, some of the, I would say, future improvements, like looking beyond, right, performance and stability with the Embari decommission, right? What can we look forward to Databricks related? It's going to be pretty heavy with like everything's released now, right? So now it's making sure that you understand how to use a tool and fixing any configurations on our side that, would make your life a little bit easier, right? So we are looking into some of I forget the name of it, but basically it's like a Databricks assistant that helps with some code changes. I've been toying around with it with some of the solution architects over there, and it's pretty good to use. So there's going to be a lot more support with any sort of, if you're a SaaS user and you want to migrate to Python, there's going to be those resources there. And we definitely want to support you as best as possible to make Databricks, a good experience. So at a higher level, I would say that more so what's coming next for Databricks is a lot more learning how to use the tool and all the full benefits of the tool. And, yeah, I would say that that's coming next. On the SaaS side, we are still developing out more so like that automation I was talking about before. And we really want to achieve that goal of bringing more stability to the SaaS. Like I said, I know it's been a rough couple months with some of the outages. So we are working pretty diligently to get that deployed for you all. And I think that is all that I have. Next slide. Yep. All right, so I'll pass it back to Julia, but I'll go through the questions and see if I can get some answers for you all.
Thanks, Ian, and thank you to our presenters today. So our first question, could you share a diagram to give us a visual describing how Embari, SAS, CastLib, SQL cluster, Hive, Glue, et cetera, and all of the pieces relate to one another?
Yes, I believe that we did put in a diagram. Let me double check on this. If not, I can put it on where we're putting all the decommissioning information, but I believe that was included. If not, I can definitely get that uploaded to our site then.
And Julia, do you mind if I give a little clarity on the BYOA question? Because I think there's quite a few and it might be good to just quickly summarize.
The SAS via BYOA?
Just in general.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to provide a little clarity. Bring your own analytics. So when CDR provisions access to its own tools within the environment, so that's like, your SAS vias, your Databricks, your Zeppelins, QuickSight. However, there have been cases where some orgs and contractors have worked with us in the past to connect their own external within CMS FSMA boundary tools to the Embari-based environment. And so what Ian was referring to, that in this case, any group that worked with us in the past to do so must make the changes to get off Embari to the new Databricks environment in anticipation for the decommissioning. Now, I saw a couple questions about, groups that might be interested in becoming BYOA service offering customers in the future. And just to provide a little bit more context, BYOA does not refer to local machine tools. That would be outside of the CMS FSMA boundary unless you have ATO or a few more specific things about your use case. Saw some questions about security. That is why, in order to be a BYOA user, you would have to be within that boundary for security purposes. And so I saw some questions about R and BYOA for bringing your own R. For any functionality that already exists in the environment, we probably would not support a BYOA model unless there was something specific about your use case. If there are any packages or functionalities you're missing with the tools we offer today, please open up a request form ticket so we can work with your team and see if we can enable that functionality. If you have any other use case for other tools that support functionalities that aren't available today, again, go ahead and open up those request form tickets and we'll work with your team on your use cases. So I hope that clarifies a few more questions.
So another question, there seem to be issues in data communication between Databricks and SAS. When will this be addressed?
Yeah, I just responded to that one. Aaron, can you either send me specific examples just to make sure that we have a document for it, but if there's something different, I just want to make sure that we already know about a few. So a few other ones, I just want to make sure I get them documented.
Yeah, so Ian, I can speak a little bit more to that. The issues that we're seeing are it's due to the ODBC driver that we're using to connect the SAS server to the Databricks server. It's not handling some of the SAS formatting, and the issues are through the driver itself. We're doing some testing on a new ODBC driver, and we'll continue to do some workarounds behind the scenes if there's some things we can do with the code to be able to help convert things so that it's as little of a burden on the end user as possible. But we are aware, writing SAS dataset, writing CAS table that has these date time formats, it causes errors when you're using that ODBC driver to write it to Hives. More to come on that as we continue to test out another ODBC driver. We're working with other Databricks SAS support and some other contractors who are connecting and using the same driver to see exactly what it is that they're doing and how they're managing this. And we'll continue to keep everybody posted as we progress through that.
Thanks, Derek. So another question, is SAS via BYOA?
I believe that's one of the questions we addressed just a minute ago. No, it would not be considered one of our BYOA offerings.
It's considered an enterprise or shared service.
Thank you, Ken.
Migration considerations article be updated to reflect accurate information working within CAS, or has the issue been resolved?
Give me more information on this. It's a little confusing. DBX code migration considerations article. Derek, do you have knowledge on this one? I'm not really sure what this migration article is talking about.
I can take a look and see what's out there compared to what we have internally to make sure that it's matching, and we'll make sure that that gets updated appropriately. I'm not sure exactly what is incorrect out on there, but if there is something that's incorrect, we'll get it corrected today.
Talk about Grant's question above this. So if you see, if this is good for everyone too, if anybody sees that a cluster has disappeared, it usually means Databricks, this is not our policy, this is Databricks, like have their clusters disappear after, I believe it's 30 days of non-use. Okay, so if you don't have an R cluster right now, we can obviously fix that and make it show up again. And we are currently going to release the ability to keep those clusters pinned, and then they won't go away, but it's only for up to a certain amount. So I would highly recommend people just continuously try to go into their compute clusters, or else obviously you'll have to come back to us and we can obviously reset it and get it to show up again. But if you've seen that in the past, that's the reasoning behind it.
Thanks, Ian. So our next question, waiting for R functionality as critical deadline for projects requiring analysis in R using advanced stats packages are coming up in a few weeks. Any ETA for R? And I know, Mohammed, you had briefly mentioned R as well, so I'm sorry if you started covering this or if there's any overlap there.
Monica, I'll have to reach out. I don't know what, we'll have to see what functionality you currently don't have or something that I don't have documented and get that fixed right away for you. But I'll make a point to reach out to you.
And then Ian, this might be you, but who do I contact for more specific information regarding BYOA? I still have additional questions that have not been addressed.
Okay. Yeah, you can reach out to me, Brian, or I can address them now. It's up to you. Whatever works.
And then any more information on when CSAT will be available? Is this delay tied to this transition?
Mohammed, is that your team?
That would be Data Solutions. More information about CSAT will be forthcoming. We'll get an update out for you guys. I'll reach out to the team that's working on it.
So much. I believe all of our questions so far have been answered, or we have messages out to contact them after our call. If there's any additional questions, obviously feel free to reach out. Mohammed just shared out some additional information and support links there as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to our presenters. Today's meeting materials, the recording, the slide content, and the Q&A will be available on our Confluence space shortly. For upcoming events, we have a maintenance event coming up September 1st, and then our next town hall will be September 26th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And we have a TBD maintenance event September 29th that we are still working on making sure that that is good to go. And then if you have any questions or issues, there is the email and Slack where those can be addressed. Thank you so much.